Welcome to This Explainer. We're jumping right into the agonizing climax of one of history's absolute most terrifying legal standoffs. Picture this, a rigged justice system, an 81-year-old farmer, and a corrupt empire staring each other down. His name was Giles Corey, and his final, brutal act of defiance, well, it's something that literally still shakes our understanding of the law today.
Okay, so let's dive into this seemingly impossible mystery. Think about it for a second. If you're dragged before a judge and told to just enter a plea of guilty or not guilty, you'd just say the words, right? But what if speaking those exact words guaranteed the total destruction of your family's future? We're going to explore exactly why a man would willingly endure a brutal 2-day execution, literally being slowly crushed to death, rather than utter a single solitary word to the court. Now, to really fully understand his choice, we gotta zoom all the way out to the biting winter of 1692. Salem Village was this small, incredibly anxious Puritan farming community in colonial Massachusetts. You've got gnawing hunger, simmering resentments everywhere, and this deep, profound belief that the devil is actively trying to destroy them. The whole thing actually kicks off in the home of Reverend Samuel Parris. Some young girls start exhibiting these bizarre, terrifying fits, contorting their bodies and claiming they're being tormented by invisible forces. The local doctor takes a look and gives a grim diagnosis. The evil hand is upon them. Just like that, the word witchcraft is loose in Salem, and it instantly turns the whole village into a total powder keg of paranoia.
And you can see just how fast this anxiety spiraled. Within mere months, the hysteria escalates at a terrifying pace. Accusations are flying completely out of control. It went from just a few vulnerable outcasts being targeted, to respected church members, to basically anyone who even dared to question the girls' claims. To handle the overflowing jails, Governor William Phipps sets up a special court of oyer and terminer. It's led by this conviction-hungry guy, Chief Justice William Stoughton. By June, they are actively hanging citizens on Gallows Hill. So the legal system isn't just failing here, it's actively feeding the panic. Now, the fatal flaw of these entire trials really came down to one absolutely terrifying concept: spectral evidence. Imagine being in a courtroom, right? And the primary evidence against you is completely invisible to everyone except your accuser. The girls would writhe around on the floor, screaming that the accused person's specter, or spirit, was biting and pinching them. Because the court treated this totally invisible, unverifiable phenomenon as undeniable hard proof, defending yourself became literally impossible. If you denied it, well, your denial meant absolutely nothing, because they believed the devil could just send your specter without you even knowing it. So put yourself in the shoes of 81-year-old Giles Corey facing this horrific legal trap. He knows the court is a total sham. If he goes with option A and pleads guilty, sure, he might keep his life, but he'd be forced to lie, confess to witchcraft, and his property would be totally seized. On the flip side, if he chooses option B and pleads not guilty, he faces a rigged jury that fully accepts that invisible spectral evidence. He'd hang, and the government would still confiscate his vast farmland, leaving his sons with absolutely nothing. It was this monstrous system designed so that the house always won. But here is the crucial point. Corey found a brilliant, albeit agonizing, legal loophole. See, under the English law of the time, a person couldn't be tried, and therefore couldn't be convicted or have their property legally confiscated unless they first formally entered a plea. Corey did the math. He calculated that if he just kept his mouth shut, if he flat out refused to say guilty or not guilty, he technically could not be brought to trial. He went with option C. But the authorities, they weren't about to let a stubborn farmer outsmart their special court. The law actually had this horrific, archaic response for this exact kind of silence. It was called Peine Forte et Dure. Basically, a brutal mechanism of torture specifically designed to literally crush a plea out of the accused. The logic is grotesque but simple. Subject the prisoner to such overwhelming physical agony that they eventually speak, just to make the pain stop, so they can be tried and hanged. Shockingly, Corey would become the very first and actually the only person in American history to be subjected to this. So on September 19th, the authorities make good on their threat. Let's just slow down and picture this scene. Giles Corey is taken from his cell and stripped naked. He's laid flat on his back on the cold ground, and a heavy wooden board is placed right across his chest. Then the local sheriff and his men begin piling heavy stones onto the board, one by one. The intention here isn't to kill him quickly, not at all. It's to inflict a slowly mounting, inescapable pressure that would eventually force those words from his mouth. And this next part just brilliantly illustrates his sheer physical and mental fortitude.
For 2 whole agonizing days, this 81-year-old man lies under that crushing weight. As his ribs actually start cracking under the immense pressure, as drawing even a single breath becomes a localized nightmare, the magistrates continually demand that he enter a plea to stop the torture. But Giles Corey? He absolutely refused to break. When the sheriff demands yet again that he enter a plea, Corey doesn't beg for mercy, he doesn't confess, he doesn't yield an inch to the court's authority. Instead, he just rasps his legendary final 3 words, "More weight." He dies right there under those stones in an act of ultimate defiance, never once giving them the plea they needed. Now, while he obviously became a tragic martyr to the court's injustice, his calculated sacrifice worked flawlessly. Think about it. Because he died unconvicted, the state had absolutely no legal right to seize his estate. He successfully denied the court the satisfaction of a sham trial. And most importantly, his extensive land and property were legally passed down to his sons exactly the way he intended. He literally beat a corrupt legal empire at its own game, using his own life as the currency. And we can really see how this singular event shifted everything. Corey's brutal, defiant death was a massive turning point for the colony. The sheer gruesome reality of an elderly man being slowly crushed to death in the public street, it sickened even some of the staunchest supporters of the trials. The community had been operating out of this frantic sense of righteous self-preservation, but the cruelty of what happened to Corey forced them to really look in the mirror. It completely shattered the illusion that they were on some holy mission. At the exact same time, the intellectual foundation of the witch hunts was crumbling. Influential Boston ministers, led by a guy named Increase Mather, finally started speaking out publicly against the proceedings. Mather actually delivers this incredibly powerful sermon where he declares that it is better for 10 suspected witches to escape than for 1 innocent person to be condemned. This was a massive, direct attack on the court's reliance on that invisible spectral evidence and their whole guilty until proven innocent mentality. After that, the dominoes fall fast. When the emboldened accusers actually overreach and point fingers at the governor's own wife, well, the political calculus shifted overnight. Governor Phipps orders a hard halt to the proceedings and completely dissolves that special court of Oyer and Terminer. A new court is set up that throws out spectral evidence entirely, and without it, the prosecutions just totally collapse. By the end of 1692, the madness evaporates, leaving behind a deep collective shame and the tragic loss of 20 innocent lives to mass panic. So, what does this all mean for us today? Giles Corey's ultimate sacrifice really forces us to examine our own systems. The Salem Witch Trials stand as this chilling monument in American history, a stark reminder of just how quickly fear can overpower reason. It leaves us with a heavy question. When modern society is gripped by panic, how far would we go to protect the truth when the rules seem completely rigged against us? Keep that question in the back of your mind the next time you see fear driving the narrative. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.